Hello everyone! So why do study anatomy when it's so tedious? The thing is, if you want to draw characters, this will affect everything else that you do. I don't remember who said this, but once I heard, you can only paint as good as you draw. And it really stayed with me, because I think the fundamentals are one of the most important skills to develop so you can reach your full potential. What we see, like the form of the body from the outside, is mostly the skeleton covered up by muscles and fat. Of course, we don't need to learn each and every muscle and bone that exists, but without understanding the main ones that form the silhouette and the body surface, it's really hard to draw believable poses or maintain the proportions in different angles. Some of the most important to understand are the shoulder blades or scapula, which has this triangular shape form, the chest bone or sternum, the clavicle, which is always visible unless the arm is lifted, and of course the pelvis. How much we can see these bones really depends on the body type, but for now we are working with average proportions. As we saw in the previous video of basic anatomy, one of the main differences between male and female body is that the female pelvis is wider and shorter in comparison to the male. Also, the chests are less broad and the shoulders and rib cage are a little bit smaller. Now let's talk a bit about muscles. As we all know, they are responsible for the body movement, but they can actually move. They can only contract, so how does this exactly work? Let's take a look to the simplified arm and I'll explain a little bit more. The muscle that contracts to cause the joint to bend is called the flexor, and the muscle that contracts to cause the joint to straighten it's called the extensor. It's very important to remember that muscles always work in pairs. Now let's take a look to a few examples I gathered from Pinterest and characterdesign.com. This guy has a lot of muscular tension. You can see most of his weight is in his left leg, and he's also carrying what appears to be kind of a heavy weapon, so we can very easily see his bicep and quadricep contracting. This girl has a much softer pose, but if we check carefully we can see the abductor working, and also the biceps have a little bit contraction here. In the third example, the tricep is very contracted and the deltoid too. In the right arm, we can see the bicep with a bit of contraction and the tricep is relaxed. And remember, to really show the force of the movement in your drawings, it's really important that you choose to draw the right bulky muscle. The last fundamental aspect on body form is fat. This one covers some areas in muscles and bones, even in a fit person, and especially if we are talking about a female. Now let's see which ones are some of the most important fat pads of the body. The breast pad. Most of the breast is actually fat, so when drawing them, you should remember not to apply the physics of an air balloon. I say this because I have seen it a lot. Then we got the abdominal fat pad, which is located in the lower abs area. In the side, we find three fat pads: the flank, the lateral gluteal, and the outer tight fat pad. These are the ones that give women's hips its roundness. And of course, in the inside we found the pubic fat pad and the inner tight fat pad. In the back view, we have some areas that go all around the silhouette, like the flank or lateral gluteal fat pad that we already mentioned, and also the whole female butt is surrounded by the posterior gluteal fat pad. Fat areas in the male body. At the side of the pectoral muscle, we find the pectoral fat pad. Here is the pubic fat pad as in the female body. In the back, we see the lateral flank pad that is much smaller than the female one. In the glute area, we find the lateral gluteal fat pad that is only in the lower part of the butt, and the inferior gluteal fat extension. As you can see, there is a huge difference in the amount of fat in the average female and male body, which may be one of the biggest differences in terms of anatomy that affects the silhouette when drawing. If you find this information to be useful, remember to hit the subscribe button, and thank you all for watching.